Donald, I appreciate you spending time with us today. I know that your time is very valuable, so we'll keep this as brief as possible. First of all, we want to congratulate you for all your success and to let you know that we're very excited about you coming to our ACN International event sometime in the future.
Well, ACN has really been a great company, and you've done an amazing job, Greg, you and your whole staff and group of people. And it's an honor to be with you. And believe me, if you weren't amazing and if your company wasn't a great company, I wouldn't be doing this.
We appreciate that. One of the key questions that always get asked of us is, why do we keep doing what we're doing at this level of success that we've experienced, which pales into comparison of what you've experienced? What keeps you going? What wakes you up in the morning?
Well, I do it because I love it. I really love getting up in the morning and going to work and going through the wars and the battles and the victories and sometimes the defeats, but you turn the defeats around. I just love what I do. And if I didn't, I wouldn't do it. I would stop immediately. I always tell people you have to love it. And if you don't love it, you're not going to be good at it. But just like you and your top people, I guarantee you love what you're doing. Otherwise, you wouldn't have built ACN into a great company.
We really do love it. One of the things that really drives me crazy, it may do the same for you, and I just want to get your perspective on it, are people that you come in contact with that you just see have so much potential that are just going unused. What do you see in regards to that, and what kind of encouragement would you give someone to take their lives to the next level?
Greg, I see it all the time. I went to school with people. They went to the Wharton School of Finance. There were these brilliant people, these brilliant students, and they went out and they never made it. I graduated from the Wharton School, which I consider the best business school, in 1968, and I graduated with a lot of very smart people. And some of them have really made it big, as you can imagine, and some of them have not made it at all. And I look at the different people, and the ones that made it weren't necessarily the smartest, and they weren't necessarily the best, but they had a quality where they just really never quit or never gave up. And you used the word perseverance, and you asked me to talk about perseverance a little bit, but it's the same thing. I mean, it's called not quitting. And they just wouldn't stop, and they became successful. And then other guys that were better students, probably smarter, to this day, they've never really hit, and they're not going to hit at this point of the game. And I look at them and I say the word was they just never quite had that perseverance or that, no quit attitude.
Yes. Would you agree that in order to be successful, that one would have to separate themselves from the mentality of the masses, if you will, that you have to start thinking at a higher level?
To be successful, you have to have a lot of different ingredients, to be honest. Look, number one, sadly, you have to be born with a good brain. If you don't have that, it's not going to be, but the people you deal with have. But you have to be able to separate yourself. The fact is, you need to separate yourself from the pack. I mean, the pack is the pack for a reason. That's why they're in the pack.
Absolutely.
It's a terrible expression. And there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, they can be happier than you and I, perhaps, okay? But the fact is, you have to be able to separate yourself from the pack.
Yes. One of my favorite sayings is that you cannot be 99% committed to something or anything and have it work. You have to be totally sold out, totally committed, totally excited about what you're doing. Is that the same feeling you have in business as well?
Well, it is, and I think with one little caveat, Greg, you have to be able to make that little detour every once in a while because, I've known people that are 100% committed to an idea and a concept, and if new technological advances come along, ACN comes in with something else or whatever it might happen, you have to be able to sort of flow with that current and go with it. You can't just say, gee whiz. I mean, I've known people that were 100% dedicated and committed to a concept. When they had to make the change in course, they weren't able to make it. So the 100% dedication is absolutely imperative, but you still need a certain flexibility to go. The boxers have an expression, you have to go with the punches. And there are a lot of punches in what you and I do, and you have to be able to do that.
Absolutely. How about belief in what you're doing? Where you go to the marketplace and maybe you have that little ounce of doubt because you don't know whether or not you can be a success. There's something inside of you that's been holding you back. How would you get somebody to close that gap where their possibilities are endless for those people? What would you communicate to them?
Well, I like what you said, and I haven't heard it that way so much, the word belief. And usually when I hear belief, I hear it in terms of religion, and that's also great. But the word belief in what you do is very, very important. I think two words, love and belief. You have to love it and you have to believe in it. Yes. And if you can put those two words together, you're going to be successful.
How about persistence?
It's one of the great words. And we're talking about great words. Maybe for some things it's not such a great word, but if you're talking about success, You can never quit. You have to be persistent. You just have to go. And, you know, there's a story that my father told, and he thought it was a great, funny story. I didn't. And it was about a man who wanted to start a cola company. And he started it, and he called it 3 Up. And you know where this is going. Yeah. And then he failed. He went bankrupt. He went out of business. He said, I'm not giving up. And he called it 4 Up. And then he called it 5 Up. And then he failed again, and he called it 6 Up. And ultimately, he said, I quit. I give up. And you know what? If he wouldn't have quit, he would have had 7 Up. You have to be persistent. You just can't quit.
All the time we tell our leadership within ACN to never show doubt, fear, worry, or hurt. That the leader is the consummate person that people will always look towards for direction, guidance, and just general instruction on where they need to go. How important to you is the concept of showing confidence to everybody else that's in your organization?
Well, you have to show confidence, but you also have to believe in it yourself. You can't just think you're showing confidence if you're not confident. But I give the example sometimes with the word confidence, because it's very important toward leadership, of the lion tamer. You'll have this little guy go into a big cage with this big, monstrous, 1,000-pound animal that could rip him apart in 10 seconds. Yes. And he'll walk in and he'll start, get back, and the lion's almost like afraid. Now, I could send one of my big bodyguards in there with big, strong muscles that can rip most humans apart in a fight very easily. And he'll walk in like this, and the lion will see it, and that guy is over. It's over for that guy. So sometimes you have fear of things, and there's nothing wrong with that, but try not to show it. Because if you show it, guess what? Your people that you're leading are also going to be showing it, and that's not good.
You know, managing the mental roller coaster is huge. You know, every day we have peaks, we have valleys, we have a lot of different experiences that we have. And what we found are the people that reach the top, it's very easy for them to remain excited and positive, but how do you get them from when they're at rock bottom to get looking at that mountaintop again, to help them to be successful and to keep striving for success?
Well, that's where the perseverance comes in. That's where you really need the perseverance. You know, it's easy to be persistent and not quit when you're winning. But where you really have to go and have that attitude is when you're, look, I had a very terrible period in the early 1990s. The real estate markets collapsed. The world was coming to an end. It was like terrible. It was a depression. It wasn't, they talk about the recession. It was a depression in certain businesses, especially in the real estate business. I have a lot of friends. They went bankrupt. You'll never hear from them again. They went out of business. I went back to work. I didn't quit. I mean, perhaps beyond my brain, I didn't quit. And I worked really hard. I never worked harder, even when I was building the business. And today, my business is bigger and stronger and much more powerful than it ever was in the 1980s. And it was really the word perseverance. You're going to have some bad times. I don't care who you are and what you're doing, you're going to have down times. And that's where the word perseverance or not quitting comes in.
You know, we talked about the masses. I'm sure that you've seen it in the many years that you've been in business, that there's very few people that could ever draw that necessary line where they tell themselves they are never going to go back, they're always going to push forward no matter what adversity that they come against. Why do you feel that the majority of people are reluctant to draw that necessary line in the sand to never have an opportunity to go back?
Well, a lot of people give up. A lot of people, and for good reason. Look, sometimes you get punched in the face so hard and so often and so rapidly that you fall back. And you can't say, oh, gee, that's terrible, isn't it? I mean, it's human. I mean, it happens. But you got to keep going forward. You just have to do it. And those are the great success stories. And, I use the example of punched. Well, the boxers, I mean, it's those guys that just keep moving forward. They just keep going. They won't let anything stop. Those are the ones that become the champion, not the one that, oh, gee, he gets hit and he goes down and that's the end of his career. You just can't give up.
Persistence really is a big thing, and I know we talked a number of times during our conversation during the course of the day. One of my favorite sayings is that the yeses will build your business and the nos will build you. And if you can go through enough no's, there's a great chance that you'll win. Just like, a successful baseball hitter, will strike out maybe 7 out of 10 times, but they get paid millions of dollars for doing that. What is your take on people being able to go through where normally people would just back off? How does someone continue to go through those necessary numbers? It's
a very interesting question and statement, Greg, because it's really more of a statement than anything else. No's can be better for you than yeses, because when you keep getting rejected, when you keep hearing the no, you have to learn that there's a reason for no. What is it? Now, why are they saying no to me? Why is it that they keep saying no? You have to figure it out, because you know what? If they say no and no and no and you keep saying no, maybe you're doing something wrong. You have to learn how to take that no and change it into a yes. So oftentimes it's those no's that can make a life a lot better than those yeses.
You've written many books, and there's a number of things that you've spoken about in your books. You've shared a lot of wisdom. And I think that's admirable for you to be so successful in business, and yet being in a position to want to give back to people, to help them come along to possibly even where you're at. What was the motivation for you writing those books?
Well, I've had so many different motivations in my life. I wrote the first book, which is the #1 selling business book of all time. It's called The Art of the Deal. And I really wrote that because Cy Newhouse at the time owned Random House, and he came to see me and he said, would you write a book? And I thought he was crazy. And what it was is he put me on the cover of GQ. This was in 1987 or 88 or something. And he put me on the cover of GQ, and the magazine sold very well. And he came to see me. He said, you know, if a magazine sells well, a book is going to sell well. And, you know, you sort of put it together. That's sort of called business common sense. Cy Newhouse is one of the great publishers in the world, ever. And so I did a book called The Art of the Deal, and it became very successful. And I enjoy doing it. And since then, I've done 5 books, and they've all been bestsellers and #1 bestsellers. And recently, I wrote a book, How to Get Rich. And I wrote another book this year, Think Like a Billionaire. And they were both incredible bestsellers. And I have fun writing books. I like it. I mean, I relax when I write. I like to write. I've always liked to write. But the other motivation is that I like teaching people what I've learned. And a lot of what I've learned we've just been discussing. I mean, you have to love what you do. You can never give up. There's so many different things. Stay out of the pack. Hey, if you want a nice, easy, okay life, you can be in the pack, and you can live well, and you get your paycheck every week, and I think it's fine. But if you really want to do something, you do have to get out of the pack. So all of these things are discussed in my books, and that's why they've sold so well.
Excellent. We're excited about what's happened with ACN, and yet we believe that this is the very beginning for all of us. Being in business for 13 years, going into our 14th year of opportunity, just being in the very beginning with digital phone service or VoIP and all the technological breakthroughs that are ahead of us, we're finding ourselves right in the very center of all the things that are going on worldwide with deregulation, and we feel that we're just doing the right thing the right way. If there were 1 or 2 or 3 points that you could tell us or tell the ACN family of what they need to do in order to go from where they're at right now, whatever stage they're at, whether they're a beginner, whether they've been here for a while, or whether they're one of our top leaders, what are some of those key points that you would tell them in order to take their businesses to the next level?
Well, first of all, I'd say stay at ACN. You know, I am asked to do this, what you're doing with me, many, many times. And I turn down many, many different proposals because, for one reason, I don't have the time. But for another reason, I don't like the company. And we do a lot of research on companies before we agreed to do something like I'm doing for you. And ACN's a great company. I would say knowledge is so important, especially when you're dealing in high-tech kind of things like you do. You know, with my business, it's real estate. If I get the good location, if I get this, if I get that, certain things sort of work. With ACN, it's really knowledge. And one of the beauties with ACN that I've been able to determine after some research is that you guys have stayed ahead of the pack. You've stayed ahead of them from a technological standpoint, from a knowledge standpoint. And in your world, I think the word knowledge is so important. And listening to people, even at so-called low levels, they may be there because of their age or something else, but they're so smart. And the other thing, again, is that word, don't stop, don't give up, don't quit.
Yes, very good. Well, we appreciate your time. And this has been a great time for us. I know that we're very excited about what this interview is going to mean to our ACN family. We look forward to seeing you at one of our next international events.
Well, I'll be there, and I'm very excited about your company because it's really, you've done an amazing job, Greg, so you have to be very proud. But don't be too proud because, you know, you got to keep it going now, right?
We have the ability to remain humble and successful at the same time.
That's a great ability.
Thank you.
Have a good time. Thank you.